Hey, thanks for clicking. It means the world to me you're here, and I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to listen to me talk about these games that I played over the course of 2024. If you like the video, do all the algorithm stuff down below. It helps the channel out. Without further ado, enjoy my recap of my streaming journey so far. Now, I started streaming about this time last year, and over that year, I made some great memories. And some great friends. During this time, I've gotten to play some games that I've been wanting to play so very badly for years, but just never got around to playing them. Anytime there was a lull in any new AAA releases I was excited for, my friends would get me started on another kick of League of Legends, Overwatch, Counter-Strike, whatever multiplayer game we were playing at the time. So, enter streaming. Taking the time out of the day after work to play games I want to play, while also meeting people who love the game I'm streaming. It's been nothing short of an amazing experience so far. Now, this video is going to mostly be about the single-player games I played over the past year, and giving my thoughts and opinions on them with a should you play it or not recommendation at the end for each one. All these games were played during stream, so footage you're seeing is probably going to be B-roll from that. And after and around, like, when I finished Control and Armored Core, I decided that I would come up with a weekly schedule. More on that when I get to the games that were part of it. Driver San Francisco. This was a great arcade racer to start off streaming with. I modded my install as I had booted up initially and was having too easy of a time escaping the cops. I wanted a bit more of a challenge as a fairly competent racing game player, not to toot my own horn or anything. But the mod just makes the cops take longer to lose you and ups their AI difficulty a notch from the default. Other than that and some new side missions, I believe the story remains unchanged. Story follows the main guy from the previous game, Driver 3, John Tanner. After a serious car crash seemingly gives him the ability to shift to new body, enabling him to drive basically any car on the road. And yes, the ability is explained away as probably exactly what you think it is. If you're familiar with the franchise at all, you will feel at home playing. The shift ability is pretty integral to the gameplay though, and it will be a love it or hate it kind of situation. Fortunately for me, I loved it because it enables a lot of creative expression while you're playing, and it hooked me instantly. So this one gets a big recommendation from me to anyone who likes the Driver series, as well as anybody who likes arcade racers like Burnout Paradise or any games like that. Dark Souls Remastered. It's Dark Souls. You know what it is. I decided to make it harder on myself though, and play at level 1. To be fair to Dark Souls 1 though, it is the easiest to play at level 1, because of the pyromancy flame in the game. Doesn't take anything to level up, and it doesn't have any stat requirements, unlike the pyro flames in, I believe, Dark Souls 2 and 3. And souls were in abundance due to the lack of leveling. That being said, I'm not any sort of challenge runner or speed runner for the game, and this is my first foray into that sort of realm. I know Soul Level 1 runs are how it starts for most challenge runners. This being my first go at it, I missed out on a lot of the actually broken pyromancies that exist in the game, as well as missed out on some speedrun glitches that would have helped progress the game a little bit quicker. The whole thing took a lot longer than I anticipated. In my mind, the whole thing was going to be like the Rick and Morty meme. Quick 20-minute adventure, in and out.
Go, in and out, 20 minutes adventure.
And, well, the early game was easy, because Dark Souls 1 map design of Lordran is peak level design. If you're anything like me, you've already seen multiple hours of content glazing the level design, so I'm not going to rehash that here. Instead, I will tell you to avoid doing a level 1 run if you value your own sanity whatsoever, because reality hit me like a ton of bricks. The mid-game and beyond, so after Anne Rolando, and the DLC, all whooped my ass. All of that being said, though, I was able to beat all the major bosses that I wanted to. The only ones I skipped, to my knowledge anyway, were Calamite, the Black Dragon, and Manus, Father of the Abyss, both from the DLC. Level 1 run is something I'm glad I can say I finished. Ayo. But I wouldn't wish this on any normal person. I do highly recommend checking out Dark Souls if you haven't, despite that though. Fallout New Vegas. Fallout was an interesting time. I decided from the jump that I would play on hardcore, though I think I played on normal difficulty. I saw a friend play on hardcore mode and decided it would be way more interesting, and I was absolutely correct, due to the need for food, water, and sleep and everything. The build was decided very early on to be a luck, strength, unarmed build, with no Riz and 2 IQ points. My boy Grimpo set out on the adventure of a lifetime. Now, I had almost zero interest in the story apart from getting to the strip and finding the guy that shot me in the head and finding out what happens after that. So I did not take a conventional route. Like normal players would go to Prim first. Instead, I beelined it through Cazador Country, utilizing basically all the supplies I was given at the beginning of the game, including the DLC guns that I was given. This was a fun taste of the game though, and was enough to keep me pushing through. I stopped briefly over at Red Rock Canyon and met the Great Khans, and Grimpo liked them quite a bit, but he wasn't sure how he felt about them being so readily used by Caesar and his legion. From there, I ran pretty much right to the strip though. Once I was there, I booked it right to the tops, and to meet my would-be killer, Benny. Caused a scene and booked it. Ran away. Right to Mr. House with the platinum chip. Upon learning its purpose, though, Grimpo began enacting his plans to take over the strip himself. Met up with the boomers after being blown up many times trying to reach them. Finally made peace with them, and actually formed an alliance with them after helping them with a few chores and errands for them. Then we had to learn more about Kaiser and his legion firsthand. So, to move the story forward, I and Grimpo allied with Kaiser hesitantly and not permanently. Right up until the point where Grimpo decided he had enough and just let loose on Kaiser himself and punched his way out of Legion camp. The battle for Hoover Dam was handily won by Grimpo and his Secure Chan bot army, and the strip was remade in Grimpo's image. I'd like to revisit this game and drum up a new character or two to play through with guns and a higher charisma build. Overall, the game does hold up pretty well, but I did have to mod it to get it playable on PC. And it took me a little while to get used to. I'm somebody that plays a lot of competitive FPS titles, like Valorant and Counter-Strike. So, when I would line up a shot and the gun would just miss, I would get frustrated a little bit. Or I'd have a 90 whatever % chance of hitting an enemy and then still miss just because of probability. I had to recontextualize it in my mind to be more like a D&D dice roll for the combat. And once I did that, it made way more sense to me why this game and the others in its series are so popular. I would recommend New Vegas, if not for anything else. The delightful, almost tabletop-like gameplay, but in first person. I'm looking at you, Vance System. Yakuza 0 and Yakuza Kiwami. I finally finished my playthrough of Yakuza 0, but I only got to stream the tail end of it, as I started it years ago. Kiryu Kazuma and Goro Majima are some of the best protagonists you could ask for in this kind of game. I don't have much to say about Zero other than go play it right now. Yakuza is a very serious crime drama, so if you like crime drama, you're in for a ride. The gameplay is fairly simple, akin to most beat-em-up games, but open to some mastery with the skill trees and unlockables. Add in the satisfying boss fights, and you have a masterpiece on your hands. Yakuza Kiwami is a remaster of the first game, and this will be another really solid recommendation to play, especially because 10 years in the joint
made you a fucking pussy.
It's essentially more Yakuza 0, but with the story following the events of the first game, and some gameplay changes to match. I've loved every single minute I've put into the Yakuza games I've played so far. I still need to play Kiwami 2, which I own, and I bought Yakuza, Like a Dragon Ishin, which is the same series, when that game came out. I still need to play through them, and I think I'll be doing so in 2025. Battle for Bikini Bottom Rehydrated. Revisiting this childhood favorite of mine, updated the look how I remember the original game looking on GameCube, was an absolute delight. I love this game, and thoroughly enjoyed playing through it again. SpongeBob SquarePants Battle for Bikini Bottom, or SBSP BFBB for the real Bob heads out there. The original, it's a great platformer that takes full advantage of the licensing agreement. The whole game was built top-down, oozing love for the source material. And I'm delighted to report that the remaster captures that same level of passion. Game is lovely in its presentation and retains everything that made it the original special while updating it for a new generation. I sincerely hope the team behind this gets to work on a Oh
my god.
That's right, I'm years late to this game. They did get to make a sequel. I might have to give that a play in 2025. If it wasn't apparent from my gushing about this game gets a huge recommendation, especially to anybody that likes 3D platformers or collectathons. Control by Remedy Games was an atmospheric, immersive, third-person action shooter, and I loved it. This game screams attention to detail at every corner. The super secret shadow FBI CIA operation angle that the game has gives the game a lot of material to play with story-wise. Research labs filled with super secret redacted files, objects of power, think SCPs, and different corrupted entities. I tried to read most of the notes I found, but I still don't know what's all going on. And I love that. It reminds me of BioShock in that way, with the collectible lore bits. The gameplay rocked too. Very solid shooter controls, and the extra abilities you get as the story progresses are super fun to play with. This game gets a big recommendation for me, and I could talk more about it, but there's plenty of video essays out there already, and the more I talk about it, the more I will spoil. So, just go play it. Armored Core 6: Fires of Rubicon. From Software. I began this game initially when it came out, but I paused at like chapter 2 or 3, I don't remember, of the story, just because I got busy with other games. Well, I finally got around to finishing it. At least one time through. Apparently there's other content if you finish a story for the other story paths. And wow, it was worthwhile. This game is pure adrenaline maxing when you're in a fight, which is like 90% of the game. I'm gonna come clean and say I didn't pay attention to the story here, like, at all. I tried to, but the gameplay was so good that I just wanted to keep skipping the cutscenes. I just wanted to get into the game and play the game. So it's another reason for me to revisit the game and pay attention to the story. This game is a solid recommendation if you're a fan of challenging action games. I'm sure it's been said before, but I'm gonna say it. This game, Armored Core 6, is the Dark Souls of mech games, and it's really damn good for it. The customization is sick. I even had a friend who designed a whole Armored Core with loadout for me, which was super fun to use. Red Dead Redemption. I put 50 or so hours into Red Dead 2 when that came out for PC, so I was excited to get at this finally. Unfortunately, it was via the Switch port because I played before the PC port came out. I didn't really care because I got to experience the story, And that's all I really cared about, given how Red Dead 2 leaves off. The Switch port was okay. I didn't run into too many technical issues, but regardless, this game was played as part of my wildcard weekend streams, which is part of the schedule that I decided to come up with, which my Discord community gets to vote on what game I will be playing on the weekend. If you're interested in having a say on what games I play on the weekend, Discord link will be down in the description. The story of John Marston following the end of Red Dead Redemption 2 was captivating, but it certainly doesn't hit the highs Red Dead 2 itself does. This game came out after one of my favorite Rockstar titles, GTA 4. You can tell they wanted to shake things up from how that game was. GTA 4 is very oppressive in its atmosphere. The city feels huge, and it feels like you won't get to see everything it has to offer by the time the credits roll. And you won't, which, I mean, that's good. Rockstar games shine the most when they leave things for you to discover later. Red Dead Redemption is the complete opposite end of that spectrum, though. It feels vast and open, not so claustrophobic. I wish there was more to discover, like Red Dead 2. I'm sure this was limited in part by the 360 and PS3 when Red Dead 1 came out, because that's what it was originally designed for. Now that the game is fully out on PC, and I think there's a decent selection of mods available as well, I can give this game a huge recommendation to anybody who did play Red Dead Redemption 2 and has been left wanting more. Get after the Vanderlyn gang members, John. Give them what they deserve after what happened. Kirby and the Amazing Mirror. Oh my god, I'm so glad I went back and played this game. This was such a fun romp through a childhood classic of mine, and an honor to have it as the first full Throwback Thursday series of streams. And you could probably guess what I play on Throwback Thursday. But for the curious, it's both childhood classics from my own childhood, or some classic retro title I haven't played before. Full disclosure on this title, I have played it, I had beaten it, but this is the first time I had done so with a fully developed frontal lobe. But that's still up for debate. Kirby games rock. I love how simple they are to understand at a basic level, and this one is no real exception to that. The most confusing part about the game is figuring out how to actually collect the amazing mirror pieces to finish the game. But once you figure that out and realize how the in-game maps work and connect together, it coalesces into this really sharp experience. Pun intended. It can be fun to try and figure out which doors lead to what areas on your map. This game is kind of like a Kirby Metroidvania, so if that sounds interesting to you, I highly recommend it. And even if not, if you are a fan of older and classic 2D platformers, I feel like Kirby would be up your alley if you haven't tried a Kirby game before. Any newcomers to the franchise might want to start with Nightmare in Dreamland on Game Boy Advance, though. Only because it's a little bit more straightforward in the progression. Half-Life 1. The father of all modern FPS titles on PC. I played this as part of my FPS Friday streams, which is exactly what it sounds like. Various FPS titles, or just first person, doesn't necessarily have to be shooters. Surprisingly, I am actually older than this game, but only by like 1.5 months? It isn't hard to see where Valve developed their game feel from after playing through this. The way all their different games, Portal, Counter-Strike, TF2, etc., the way they all feel to play can be felt here. The movement and shooting are very similar to the above Source Engine games, but with slight differences. I believe Gordon Freeman, in his first outing, has the ability to long jump, and I believe he runs faster, which are two major differences from modern Source Engine game. But don't quote me on that, I could be wrong. Half-Life excels in its variety. Be that enemy, weapon, or location variety, there's a bit of something for everyone. Zombies? Check. 9mm? Pistol? Check. Science labs? Check. Alien guys that will one-shot you out of nowhere? Check. MP5? Check. Secret government base a la Area 51? Check. Giant aliens that are essentially tanks? Check. Alien guns that shoots hornets? What? That will automatically seek out enemies? Check. Literal alien dimension? Also check. It's almost too much to take in as a player, but Valve somehow managed to make it all digestible by spreading it out over 18 chapters within the story. New weapons make fighting new enemies easier and are rewarded after exploring each new locale. That gameplay loop is fantastic.
Fuck the last boss though. God damn, that shit was agonizing.
I cannot recommend Half-Life enough though. Can't speak for any console ports, but this game was free to grab on Steam a while ago and should run on practically any modern PC, even on integrated graphics. Get it and play it however you can, especially if you're a diehard FPS player like myself. Grand Theft Auto 4. Oh my. Butter me up and slap my ass with one of those I Heart Liberty City hats or shirts. Because man, I played this for weeks during Wildcard Weekend streams, and it is an absolute banger. It's got a longer story than most games, and I spoke briefly about it in the Red Dead section earlier, but this game oozes atmosphere. Every single NPC is doing something. Tons of different buildings have actual interiors you can go into and explore. I mean, for Pete's sake, you can walk up to a hot dog stand and buy a hot dog. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think that exists in Grand Theft Auto 5, like, at all. Or if it does, it's hidden away. But I played through the whole story, and I've given GTA Online way more hours than I'd like to admit. My grievances with GTA 5 aside, the stories of Nico Bellic, Johnny Klebitz, and Luis Lopez are stories I won't soon forget. Nico is an immigrant to the USA, sold on moving by his cousin Roman, told stories of a lavish life full of women, fast cars, and easy money. Reality hits hard though. Nico is driven to crime and gets tied up in some really bad business with the Russian and Irish mobs who are established in Liberty City. Johnny is a biker, VP of his biker gang, Lost MC. his motorcycle club president, Billy, comes back from court-ordered rehab and starts shitting on the moves Johnny was making while he was acting as president during Billy's absence. Johnny had made nice with a rival biker gang. One of the lost members gets killed, and Billy immediately blames that gang. This causes tension, which eventually boils over due to a drug deal gone bad involving Nico from the main story. Luis's story follows him and his friend gay Tony, who own 2 nightclubs in downtown Liberty City. But the nightclubs are struggling. So Tony takes out some loans with some Italian loan sharks. This sets off the chain of events for the main story, leaving Luis to go clean up after Tony's messes. The hijinks that Luis gets up to is a far cry from the more grounded and serious tone of the first DLC and base game, and it's welcome. The city in the base game could feel almost drab or dreary. The Ballad of Gay Tony brightens things up, and it doesn't even make any changes other than the story and some new vehicles. I recommend this game and the DLCs, and I recommend playing them in release order. There are guides online to play through all 3, chronologically, but I don't know how much merit there is to doing that. It seemed like a lot more hassle than it's worth, given how long the load times are for this game, even on modern hardware. The Simpsons Hit and Run. I put out a video on this one. It's fun to play through again, and relive some childhood memories. I have road rage and I don't know how to use it. That being said, it certainly has its blemishes, which have always been present. This game is super fun if you're here for the nostalgia factor. If you ever played this as a kid, but never finished it, like me, this is your sign. Hit and Run is certainly one of the best licensed games I've ever played, and it isn't hard to see why it has such a cult following. I know this game has a pretty strong speedrunning community, but you will not catch my ass doing any of that. I've had my fill of this game for the next 5 years minimum. This game gets 2 recommendations. If you've played before, you should revisit. If you never have played, probably stay away and just laugh at Germa having a difficult time with the game. Or me. Okay, last self-plug, I promise. Trepang 2 is a sort of spiritual successor to Fear, or F-E-A-R, which isn't a game I had played before, but I will be playing soon, if it's more of this. This game is an FPS, so you can probably guess what day of the week I played it on. I think I'll just let the gameplay speak for itself here. So if that looked interesting at all, play this. The story is fairly light, but it is there for those who want it. From what I recall about the story, you're some sort of agent that worked for a company, but you get broken out by some former colleagues. It's some sort of corporate espionage plot. I didn't pay too much attention. I was too engrossed by this. This game is easily a big recommendation for me, as a huge fan of first-person shooters. Wreckfest. I cannot wait for the sequel to this game. This is far and away my favorite racing game I played during Wheel Wednesdays this year on stream. That'd be racing games using a wheel and pedals setup. Has the perfect blend of arcadey feel thanks to the destruction mechanics coupled with a realistic handling model. This game was so much fun to just boot up and play, whenever the AI wasn't deciding to ruin my day. I can't speak for how well it plays on a controller, as I played through the whole campaign and some multiplayer with the Logitech G920 wheel. As I mentioned, the game has a realistic driving model, or at least semi-realistic. So I played on whatever realism settings the game offered, as I love a simulator type experience when using the wheel setup. Cars all have weight to them, especially noticeable when the game forces you into a double-decker car or an actual bus. You can't easily snap which direction you're going without some seriously skilled driving. Imagine this game as if it were Burnout 3 or Burnout Takedown, minus the nitrous bar mechanic, traffic, and bonkers speeds. You could take out the entire race and just casually drive to the finish backwards if you really felt like it. But good luck, you need a car that's going to be able to take a beating to do that. Every hit and shunt you do to another car does a little bit of damage to your own, unless you happen to hit them perfectly or spin them out. I could go on and on about this game, but it's easier for me to just recommend it to any racing game fans. Mafia 2. This was also played during Wildcard Weekend streams, meaning my Discord community voted on this. Are you guys noticing any sort of trend or pattern with the types of games that have been picked out? Or am I just paranoid? Anyway, Mafia 2 follows the story of Vito Scaletta, who's an Italian immigrant in 1940s New York City. Sorry, Empire Bay, not New York City. It's New York City. He gets involved in some petty crime with his longtime bro, Joe Barbaro. And Vito gets canned by the fuzz. In order to avoid jail time, he enlists in the army right around the time the US got involved in World War II. From there, the story actually takes off. And it's a mob story. It's best I don't spoil anything about it. The gameplay is solid for what the game is, but don't expect a Rockstar level title or anything like that. This game is pretty reminiscent of Driver 3, and maybe Driver Parallel Lines, but I don't know, I haven't played that game. The on-foot sections are an absolute breeze if you use mouse and keyboard, and the driving feels really good with a controller. This game gets a big recommendation from me. I don't know why I'm doing this voice, by the way. I'm noticing I have added a lot of backlog games I wish I got to sooner, though. Resident Evil 4 Separate Ways. Special Agent Ada Wong stars in the DLC for Resident Evil 4 Remake, which follows, I believe, roughly the same story as the original minigame in the original release of the game. Please correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. I have not played the original Resident Evil 4. Playing Resident Evil 4 Remake as is feels good as hell. Playing it as Ada Wong, impeccable. Story follows Ada's side of events from the main game and it helps explain how she was able to help Leon, because without Ada, the story of Resident Evil 4 would be a lot darker. If you didn't play Resident Evil 4 Remake or the original, highly recommend it if you like third-person shooters and action games. In fact, I enjoyed this so much, I am considering going back and playing through the original for 4, just to see what kind of lightning in a bottle Capcom was able to capture twice, apparently. Games I didn't finish. There's some games I want to revisit over the next year already. and the quantity seems like a plateful. I'm excited to get at them, so if any of the games in this list seem interesting to watch someone play for the first time, all of these are new to me and will be first-time playthroughs for me. Feel free to join me in the new year as I continue my streaming and content creating journey. I'm excited to share more memories with you guys in chat and here on YouTube. This type of video is not something I think I plan on typically making, but let me know if you liked it or not. That's also valid. If I were to comment on any of the games that I haven't finished, it'd be Final Fantasy VII, both the original release and remake, and just how good that game is and was while I was playing it. Dragon's Dogma 2 is another game that gets a shout. It is a huge game, and I could see myself getting lost in it for like hundreds of hours. It feels like one of those games you really have to dive headfirst into to get the most out of it. So it seems like something that I have to really focus on. I haven't finished either Final Fantasy VII or Dragon's Dogma 2, but both games would get a recommendation based on what I did manage to play on stream. I got to about chapter 8 or 9 in Final Fantasy VII Remake, and I put like 10 hours into Dragon's Dogma. So take my recommendations with a grain of salt. They are not fully formed. Also, play Dragon's Dogma on a console. It has really bad performance hitches on even my very expensive, like, supercomputer. And I don't know about y'all, but a relatively stable 30 frames per second is preferable to me to a 55 frames per second average that has really inconsistent frame times that you're bouncing up and down in your frame rate constantly. Yes, could I limit the frame rate to 30 frames per second and get a stable 30? Yes. Will I? No, because I'm on the superior platform where that is not necessary. My expensive computer should be able to play this game at acceptable frame rates. I can't imagine what anybody on lower end hardware is doing to play this game. Dragon's Dogma rant aside, the Yap session is going to be wrapping up here. Thank you guys so much for joining me. If you're still watching, it means the world to me. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your morning, afternoon, evening, night, whenever it is that you're watching. I hope you have a good day. Thank you again. Until next time. Bye-bye.